good to have you with us. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and I hope that you are ready for another radio program. We have invited John Hall to join us today, who has written the book A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. He is also joined by Don Raumaker over there, who might pop in with us a little bit later in the program to say a few words in regards to the book and the material that we will be discussing here today. Hall's supposition is that we are faced with a type of terrorism that is unseen, but just as deadly. The U.S. government satellite surveillance systems are a new way for criminals to gain possession not only of people's financial lives, but our most precious resource, our minds. What can we do, and who are these individuals who are trying to control the way that we think, feel, act, and what we do? We are going to talk about the topics of electronic harassment, stalking, and mind control. We're also going to discuss how CIA and NSA technology is being used to track, intimidate, and even read the thoughts of people. As you know, if you've been following this radio show, these are topics that come up often on and off with our guests that we invite. And we're going to go into detail more in terms of this here today. The website that you can check out right away to read more about our guest and the book is satweapons.com, satweapons.com. So check that out for much more information on that. But with that, John Hall, welcome to Red Ice Radio. It's good to have you with us today.
Oh, it's good to be with you. One thing I would like to start off with is when I wrote the book, obviously it's titled Satellite Terrorism in America. What I wrote about was technology that our government has worked on and experiences that I've seen with close friends and patients that have been exposed to this. But after publishing the book, I've had such a public outcry from many European countries, a lot of people from the UK, from China, from India, that I'm almost wishing that I had left the America part out of the title, because this is obviously a global problem.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was actually the first kind of thing I wanted to discuss with you about, the obvious fact that this is not only happening in America, it's happening in Europe as well. And I don't know how much you've researched that or how much you bring up in terms of that in the book, John. But what I can say from my point of view right away is that we have something ongoing over here in the European Union now called Project Galileo. This is the EU's new global navigation satellite system. We've bunged out about 3.4 billion euros for this to compete, I guess, in one level with the U.S. global positioning system. It's planned to be up and operational by 2013, obviously to help to spy on us over here as well. And the plans foresee to collect fingerprints, biometric identifiers of visitors and EU citizens, and the system would actually store 19 pieces of sensitive passenger information, including email addresses, telephone numbers, payment details of flight tickets for actually 13 years. Have you heard of this before, John?
I have heard of Project Galileo, and they're doing the same thing here in the United States with our government. There are bills currently that they're trying to get passed to mandate that all of the citizens of the United States carry a biometric identification card. And I'm assuming that that's according to our government, they've already done it in a lot of European countries. Like you said, a card that will be biometric, it will be chipped, and it will have all of your information on it. And fortunately, in our country, there is a large group of people that are fighting this technology and certainly don't want to be labeled with a biometric identification card.
Absolutely. And you know what? Actually, on our website, redicecreations.com today, I just linked up an article with the headline, India to issue all 1.2 billion citizens with biometric ID cards. And they call this pretty much crazy, you know, to issue this amount of biometric cards. We'll see if they're be able to pull it off. We'll see how that goes. But this is obviously in the plans for the whole globe, as it were, right, John?
Well, I think what happened was when Verichip and Digital Angel and these different companies that were producing implantable microchips came forward, I think all of our governments were expecting that we would be more than willing to line up and have a chip implanted. Well, there was such a public outcry, at least I know here, against human microchipping, which was, I think, their first choice of doing this. When the people came out against it so vehemently, I think they had to go to a plan B, and plan B is to issue something that seems not as intrusive, which would be an identification card. And at least in our country, after 9/11, the fear that they hold over the population here is that this is going to stop, illegal people coming across our borders, especially in Mexico and Canada, that you have to have this card and it's going to ensure our safety. And the government always uses the cloak of our national security to try to pass these types of privacy intrusion measures. And I think they were, after seeing the fight against microchipping, I think the biometric identification card is the next step to forming a one world government, or if you will, a new world order.
So what is happening in terms of the microchip then? Do you think that that's been put on ice for now, and it might be brought back later on when people have acclimatized more to that kind of technology, meaning that they're not going to look for implanting it under our skin to begin with, but they might give us, just as you say, a card or something first so we get used to the idea, and then later on they might bring that back again. What do you think, John?
Oh, I'm sure that's exactly what the plan is. And if they can convince everyone to take a biometric ID card, then several years down the road, it's very easy to say, well, you may lose this card. It's hard to get. The bureaucracy to replace a stolen or a lost card is so intense. The next best step would be go ahead and just let us put this Verichip in you that will have all of that information, and you'll never lose it. It'll be right there in your forearm. I know I've seen the stories from some of the nightclubs in Europe that were allowing their patrons, or putting chips in their patrons so they could have their credit information and you scan to get in. And they've tried doing the same thing here, but there was such a public outcry against it, especially in a country like ours where the majority of the population is still Christian, and the Christian groups really are the ones who came out just vehemently against microchipping. To them it was the mark of the beast.
Right.
It was revelations come true, and they are really the ones who stopped that. But you're right. Once they get the citizenry used to carrying a biometric ID card, and even our passports right now, in the last several years, contain a chip in them as well. Then the next step will be to convince people that, it's so much better just to have this implanted. That way there's no risk of loss. Exactly,
losing it or whatever. What do you see as the potential risks with that as well? I mean, I think it is, certain sci-fi movies, if we take that angle for a while, if it's, for instance, this iris identification, you'll see people's eyes actually being, plucked out. If it's in the hand, the people's hands get chopped off and things like that. I mean, that's a possibility here, as long as people know where the chip is. If it gets you in through, with a bank account or whatever it might be. What do you think, John?
Oh, I'm sure you'll see that, and especially if the government starts chipping people, it will be in a common place. They'll run you through centers. And it won't be a chip that's put in a myriad of different places. They'll want everyone to have it in the same place. And you're right. You will see, if it's in the forearm, you'll begin seeing dismemberment in order to get someone's credit information, especially the wealthy. If someone is a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and all their credit information is in a chip in their forearm, I'm certain that we will see violent interaction to dismember that person in order to get to their bank account.
John, why don't we just briefly talk a little bit about your background, especially in terms of this subject. I know that you're an anesthesiologist and that you're part of the Mind Science Foundation dedicated to the study of human consciousness. But how did you get involved in spy technology and the emerging control grid, so to speak?
That's a good question. You're right. I am a medical doctor in Texas. I do anesthesiology and chronic pain management. I actually have many close friends and patients that are involved in the intelligence agencies, and knew a little bit about our capability of satellite surveillance in our country already, and then started noticing that on the internet, people blogging about being victimized by it, and then saw it actually happen to several of my patients, and my fiancée began getting victimized by people accessing this technology. That was the true impetus of writing the book, was to disclose basically my ex-fiancee's story of how she was victimized by a private investigative group in San Antonio, Texas, who is accessing this very